Okay, good morning, everybody. And I hope that everybody is enjoying the beautiful rain, the unexpected rain. And again, it goes with the whole beautiful expectations and I don't want to say bad expectations, but unexpected expectations. So my name is Tayseer Gaili, and I'm the acting director at Qatar University. But today in this presentation, I go back in time to 2004, where actually I was a staff counselor at UNMISS, the United Nations Mission in Sudan. I was serving as a trauma counselor, being in the field, dealing with multiple crises and incidents. I don't want this presentation, I tried as much as I can not to put pictures. And at the same time, I do not, the past 2 days were amazing, had a lot of positive energy in the room. I want us to keep that in mind, that the positivity is there. This is what basically, as professionals in the student affairs and everybody is trying to do, building resilience, keeping positive. But that does not mean that we do not get prepared for the worst case scenario. So I'm trying as best as I can, that I don't want to put the morale down, but I want us also to be prepared for the worst case scenario so then we can act. So in this presentation, I'll just go quickly. It's a very long presentation. We might not be able to get to the end, but we'll try as much as we can to give you what I think that is important at this stage of the crisis. So a little bit of definitions about crisis, emergency, and disaster. I actually put a link for the ISAC guidelines, so we're just gonna get like a couple of those. And then what's important for the non-therapists in the room, how do mass react, and what kind of communications that we need to put in mind when we talk about emergency situation. We're also going to have the counseling services, so we're going to go a little bit back to the positivity, and we're going to like list what did we do in the counseling center in Qatar University, and I have my colleagues, I hope that they'll be able to hear us. Dr. Mehnas from Georgetown will be presenting just like one slide about the activities and how did they respond to the emergency. We have also Sarah from Well Cornell with us. And we have also Nicole from North Atlantic. And when number 4 comes, I'll give you the mic and then you can present your slide. After that, we're just gonna go quickly to the recommendations and challenges. We might not have time to go to the intervention strategies, and quite frankly, at this point, it's not necessarily for the non-therapists. After the recommendations, once the recommendations is endorsed, hopefully by the group, then we'll go through another intervention strategies and training for everybody. So if I go very fast, I just want somebody to say, slow down, okay? So when we talk about emergency, and actually we did not put the word WHO called it pandemic in mid-March, I think, but we're just gonna go now into the definitions of emergency, crisis, and disaster. So what is an emergency? It's a sudden, unexpected event that requires an immediate action to avoid a possible disaster due to a potential threat to safety and or health. It is an unforeseen situation or event. It demands extraordinary responses. It has a serious potential of developing into a disaster. What's a crisis? A crisis is a crucial stage or turning point in the course of something. After the crisis, the patient either dies or gets better. It's an interruption from a previously normal state of functioning, resulting in turmoil, instability, and significant disruption in a system. Okay. What is a disaster? It's a sudden or major misfortune which disrupts the basic fabric and normal functioning of a community. Distress may be man-made, nature, God-made, or both. What defines a disaster? The type of event, the extent of the death toll, the number of people displaced, the outbreak of the communicable disease, familiarity of the population with the hazard, predictability of the event, preventability of the hazard, intensity of the impact, severity of the consequences, duration, course, threat of recurrence, disturbance to society, need for external help, media, propaganda. We're looking here into the psychosocial criteria of disaster. So it's a negative event that brings distress for individuals and community, destroys or impairs human environment, interrupts or impairs the infrastructure of the community, interrupts the community social structure, cause a significant number of victims, overwhelms the local means of rescue, and at this point, I'm talking about the international means of rescue. Psychological casualty in disaster, all who are actually physically injured by the COVID in this case are psychologically injured. Survivors who are not physically injured but psychologically shocked and traumatized or fears that they will get injured. Witness traumatized by what they have seen, stricken population, evacuated, gathered, fear and confusions, families that have rushed to the scene and were shocked by what they have seen or heard, some rescuers affected by what they have seen and exhausted by work demand, some decision makers, some media professionals affected by what they have seen or dealing with. And always, whenever we get intense, we can take a deep breath and just get grounded in the chair, okay? Victims of the disaster. There's a primary survivors, those in the front line who have experienced maximum exposure to the event. Secondary survivors, those are grieving relatives and friends of primary victims. Tertiary survivors, these are the relief workers, which is who may help to maintain their functional efficiency with the new extraordinarily demanding situation. Quadric survivors, the community involved in the disaster who are supposed to offer help. And quintal survivors are not directly involved, but vicariously involved, which is basically us. We want to put all of that in the context of Heal the Healers context. You as student affairs professionals, the therapists in the room, all of us, we need to think of that. We might not need any of this, but we might need it. So I want you to put it in that. What is it that, how can we move on? How can we take care of ourselves? And what is it? I'm just going to throw a couple of concepts for us to put in our mind in the worst case scenarios. So culture, connectivity, the world. We have to talk about the critical incident stress quickly, resulting from exposure to a critical incident, which is usually sudden, violent, it's beyond the range of normal human experience. It overwhelms the normal capacity to cope. The reactions may be immediate, delayed, and persistent. We want to think of delivering bad news. We want to think of crafting emotional and empathetic sound bites and all the stages of the denial, the numbness, the bargaining, the anger, the depression, the acceptance. We want to think of the different mass reactions. And when I talk about this, I'm not talking about Qatar only. I'm talking about Qatar and the US, the UK. We're talking about the whole world. So neighbors helping neighbors, neighbors fearing neighbors, neighbors competing with neighbors. Examples of collective maladjustive behavior, inhibition, panic, rumors, searching for scapegoaters. Individuals' reactions in crisis, adjusted behavior, and the maladjusted behaviors like inhibitions, agitation, panic, and automatic behavior. Adjusted behavior, basically you'll have a group structure. The group structure will be intact versus the maladjusted behavior, the group structure will be disrupted. The leadership in the adjusted behavior will be maintained and established, and the maladjusted will be disappeared. In the adjusted, it will be mutual help and support is offered. In the maladjusted is like the crowd mentality. We want to put all of that, and we want to think of empathy because it's very, very important how we can put ourselves in somebody else's shoes. And if you are in a place that is actually you're blessed in a way, others are not. If you have a window, others don't. So we have to think of all of that with empathy, compassion, kindness. Now, we are actually, not only us, but in Qatar, we are actually using the Interagency Standing Committee, which is the ISIC guidelines. The Ministry of Health is actually having a whole community framework. The HMC mental health, they're using that as well. And I just picked, I put the link so everybody can just go to the link, get the whole guidelines. I just picked a couple of them that just for the sake of time. So what is mental health and psychosocial support? It's any type of local or outside support that aims to protect or promote psychosocial well-being and or prevent or treat mental health condition. The Interagency Standing Committee guidelines in emergency settings decides that levels of the interventions be integrated within outbreak response activities. These levels are to align with a spectrum of mental health and psychosocial needs, and ranging from embedding social and cultural consideration in basic services to providing specialized services for individuals with more severe conditions. The core principles are, force do no harm, promote human rights and equality, use participatory approaches, build on existing resources and capacities, adopt multi-layered interventions, and work with integrated support system. We want to think of hope, safety, calm, social connectedness, and self and community efficacy should be. We want to think about the bereaved needs to have the opportunity to mourn, and then if traditional barriers are not possible, which is this is the case, dignified alternatives, preserving the rituals and culture should be considered and available. So not only that people are feeling that they're going to die, they're just feeling that also if they die, how are they going to be buried? And hope everybody stays safe. Okay, now this is very important. This is for everybody, not only for the therapist, is selecting the right language for the audience. And this is basically in every, I don't know how many people now in the room, but everybody has, we're actually from all over the world with different cultures. So what is culture? Culture is an integrated system of learned behavior patterns common for the members of the given society, learned and transmitted from generation to generation, referring to a total way of life of a particular group of people, customs, language, material, artifacts, shared system of attitude and feelings. So when we want to communicate an emergency situation, we need to know that in emergency, people receive information differently, process information differently, and they act differently. In communication, in emergency situation, the message in a crisis must be simple, realistic, timely, relevant, accurate, and consistent. And that applies for everybody here. Communication in emergency situation, people need to simplify, because this is, they go back to their, like, I remember one of the cases, a colleague of mine back in the UN, when she was actually kidnapped, and then she completely forgot how to speak English. And she just went back to her own mother tongue, which has basically made it very difficult for us to understand what is she saying. So people like completely shut down, and these are things that we need to consider. People simplify, they cling to their current beliefs, remember what was seen or previously experienced, they want to know what people like them are going to do, look for leaders, limited intake of new information. So this is not the time for new information. This is not a very good slide, though very, very important. We need to think of a compassionate presence. We need to be concerned, compassionate. We need to give clear messages. And I'm not sure, oops. Okay, I can't read it. All right, now we're going now to the student counseling response during COVID. And this is basically adopted from the staff counseling center back in UNMIS, whereby we actually used to prepare for H1N1 back in 2006. We prepared to the details of the details. Thank God nothing happened. So what we were actually doing here is to basically, we took that, we adopted it, that to be prepared for what the possible worst case scenario. So the student counselor will provide services to manage emotional stress, fear, and anxiety during the response of COVID pandemic. The director will coordinate all clinical services, personnel, endorse the support of all counselors available, liaise need assessment for more counselors to be deployed. In this regard, the counseling services will carry out the following tasks: provide psychological and social support services, support groups, bereavement, counseling, training courses on resilience, stress management, and coping skills. Monitor workforce and for signs of chronic or severe psychological distress. Develop confidential telephone support lines. Develop a separate confidential telephone support lines for those students and staff members who are affected. Train staff in behavioral techniques to help students and staff cope with grief, stress, exhaustion, anger, mass fatalities, and fear during the emergencies. For now, we're only dealing with students, so this one is extending it to the staff. Develop family communication plans so that family members can maintain contact during quarantine. Work with communication experts to shape messages that should reduce the psychological impact of the pandemic. Coordinate peer helpers network across to distribute educational and training materials on psychosocial issues during pandemic, such as stress management, coping strategies, management of depression, anxiety, etc. Now, third line defense, in the event that COVID requires us to resort to the third line of defense, under which we will mobilize our own resources on emergency. This is basically in the worst case scenario, to provide care for all students and staff and eligible dependents. Then the counseling center director of each campus shall be, this is just a recommendation, shall be responsible for coordination, the case management activities for all personnel in accordance with the guidelines set forth by WHO, HNC, and ISAC guidelines and Ministry of Health. In this regard, the counseling services shall carry out the following tasks: establish or reinforce internal and external communication and coordination mechanism with all stakeholders to include mental health services, establish outpatients, triage, and first-level care management strategies in the event that local mental health facilities become overwhelmed by the emergency, establish a telephone triage system where students and staff can call in the event that they begin to display symptoms of the disease and are under self-isolation, disseminate protocols established by WHO for medical procedures and mental health strategies, treat students and staff and eligible dependents in accordance with the case management guidelines established by WHO and campus guidelines, work with primary health care, HNC, Ministry of Health to ensure the distribution of personal protective equipment, PPE, in accordance with WHO guidelines and in coordination with campus security and logistical officers. Provide students and staff with support to cope with grief, stress, exhaustion, anger, mass fatalities, and fear during an emergency. Report suspected and confirmed victims of all of illnesses with full names and nationalities in accordance with the procedure established within the country. Longer-term perspective, emergencies can lead to an influx of resources, which creates an important opportunity to strengthen long-term mental health, social care, and social welfare structures. I'm just gonna, okay. Now, we're just gonna stop here for a second. We're moving now to the positive. What are we doing actually now on the ground? And then I hope Mahinaz and the others, I don't know how to give them the mic. If we can give them the mic, that would be really great for Mahinaz, Sarah, and Nicole after this slide. Converting the SSC services to online services. So basically what we're doing for the past month is just trying to move to WebEx and Zoom to do our individual counseling, interactive workshops via WebEx and Zoom, recorded web workshops via Echo 360 degrees, daily messages on social media, Twitter, referral to HMC psychiatrists and medication management, planning for the hotline, laying the system with IT, working on the recorded messages, buying the mobiles, etc. We've also been doing triaging, which basically the needs of who should come first. So basically, we're setting, we had like multiple meetings with the counselors and the team, and we kind of identified all at-risk students, especially those who are following with the psychiatrist and or under medications, and those who are exhibiting risky behaviors, anxious, OCD, it's written wrong, and depressed, etc. Councils initiated contact with at-risk students, also at the dorms, especially those who are following up with psychiatrists and or under medications and special needs. So basically, those were actually our priorities: at risk, taking medications, anxious, and then the people who are in the dorms, and then the special needs. Should we have time for a breathing video? Do you feel it was too intense for the crowd? How do I get the answers? How do I know what you're saying? Okay. Just for the sake of time, I just want you to take a deep breath from your nose and exhale from your mouth, just to get grounded, and we can keep moving. And if you have time, we'll come back and play it. This is a video done by my niece in Florida. So okay. Well, Cornell, Sarah, can you see, or is only me?
No, we can still see your screen, Tayseer. It has been requested if you can put it in present mode, though, so people can see the slides better. Your co-presenters can just unmute themselves and join in whenever appropriate.
Yes, please, but I don't know, something happened with that. Okay. All right, Sarah, sorry, something went wrong with your slide. Do you have it with you, or should I just read it? Sarah from Well Cornell.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tayseer, for all that information. If I could actually just share my screen, it's a bit more clear on my end.
Yeah. I'll stop
That's
sharing.
fine.
Okay.
Yep, great.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Yes. And maybe after that, we can just go back to Nicole, and then we'll do Mahnaz.
Awesome. Apologies. Actually, I also need to read my notes. Is there a way that I can do both, or does that screen share? Actually, Tayseer, can you share your screen? Apologies, guys, for all the technical difficulties. And then if you just make the writing darker.
Okay. You have to stop sharing, Sarah. So we're all getting used to that. There we go. All right, I don't know what happened. Moving all services virtually, Sarah.
Perfect. So thank you. As Tayseer shared, my name is Sada from Well Cornell Medicine here in Qatar. At WCMQ, our health and wellness team consists of 2 psychologists and 1 part-time wellness coordinator. So we've had to get quite creative with supporting our students. First step was moving all services to virtual sessions. Initially, the focus was on essential services, so primarily individual therapeutic sessions, and then that was expanded to events and other support services. Moving services virtually did not come without its fair share of difficulties. It's been interesting to get creative with students to find safe and confidential spaces for them to be able to speak freely. It's also called for clinicians to be more flexible and understanding. WCMQ is a campus located here in Qatar in Education City, where there are other branches of universities. As such, the universities work closely together to pool services and resources. Created was a collection of various meditation, exercise, and wellness sessions from university psychologists and local centers. So for example, WCMQ will be hosting an art therapy session virtually this week, which we're really excited about. Dispersing therapeutically sound articles and communications has also been increasingly important at this time. Our team has worked on creating wellness content for campus distribution, as well as supported various student-run groups and content that they share and post on social media. A population of our students stay in student housing or dorms, and a portion of them have been unable to return home. As such, our team has delivered care packages for those students, which includes groceries, personal hygiene items, and school supplies and exercise equipment. We've also worked alongside Qatar Foundation Housing and local universities to donate to the student pantry that was developed there for students to access further items. Also continued is the Student Support Crisis Line, where when students are experiencing a crisis, they can call and speak with one of our psychologists. We're very blessed to have a local healthcare center here in Education City and lucky enough to have a very supportive team that works there. Our staff there does their best to ensure that students can access services in a way that's safe and convenient. They have also moved to offering mental health services, and I think all telehealth services, as well as offering medication delivery. Overall, we've had to get creative with services and outreach, working on really connecting with students and creating spaces where the focus is not just related to the current pandemic, but also spaces for fun, community, and release. Thank you, Tayseer.
Let me see if now we can have Georgetown. Mahnaz, can you? Mahnaz?
Hello? Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Thank you so much for doing this at the last minute, actually. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Well, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, if you are in our region in Middle East, or good evening if you're at other places. Thank you so much, Tayseer, for inviting me. I just want to mention, Sarah actually went over a lot of things that we are doing here in Qatar Foundation with the branch campuses. There are 6 American universities here in Qatar Foundation. And we pretty much more or less do the similar things. I want to go over some of the actually how did we set up our operation after we went virtual. Because as many of you who work in different counseling centers know, there were some issues around confidentiality, licensing, legal ramification, as well as ethical ramification. So we had to, because each one of our campuses here in Qatar Foundation, we are closely connected, more or less, with our main campuses. So for us, in our counseling center, we have 2 psychologists, including me, and a support staff. For us, it was really important to make sure that we are in line with the policies and also ethical and legal obligations. So the first thing that we had to do was to go through our main campus and also our licensing board to make sure that what we are doing is ethically and legally appropriate. So we had to clear some of those. Tayseer, I don't know if my slide is there. So obviously, after we cleared all of those and okay, thank you. I think it's on a different slide. It's on CNAQ slide right now. But in any case, thankfully we cleared everything with our legal counsel, and we were able to maintain our services like many other universities. And because we have diverse population here, we have populations who are international and they went back home. We have population who chose to stay in the dorms and they are international and they are here. Are of our international students actually decided to stay. And then we have local and expatriate and citizens who are here and they live with their families. So each one of these populations, they have their own special circumstances and challenges and difficulties, and we had to be there for all of them. So we continued providing counseling services, and thankfully we were able to do that for all our students, no matter where they are. We continued to do our workshops. For example, we had a mindfulness-based distress, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy workshop, and we continued, and we were able to have our students to attend virtually. We had first aid training that we continued. But also we had started some initiative like meeting the students informally, and that actually started before the COVID-19 breakout. And we were able to continue those, but also came up with new ways to providing different ways of practicing mindfulness, practicing yoga, practicing meditation. And it was in collaboration with other branch campuses in Qatar Foundation. Which was amazing to do. And then we have some online apps already that we had purchased for students, such as WellTrack that some of you may have, and they found it helpful during this time particularly. They weren't using them as much. And obviously we kind of enhanced some of the resources and self-help and information that we had on the website. So we're hoping, we're still working on this. This is not definitely, it's a work in progress, and we are still figuring out how to be there for our students. We are having more presentations for faculty and for the students to work on how to improve our support for everyone, including even faculty and staff. Thank you so much, Tayseer, and thank you for everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mahnaz, and I know that you have a meeting in 10 minutes, so thank you so much really for being there today. It meant a lot for us. Thanks a lot. Okay, Nicole.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we cannot see you, Nicole. Yes, now we can see you.
You can see me? Okay. Hi there.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Pickett. I am a student counseling specialist at the College of the North Atlantic, Qatar. And the College of the North Atlantic is a vocational and technical college. And we're a little bit different from Education City and Qatar University in the fact that all of our students are residents of Qatar. So they live with their families or a sponsor person. So we don't have a dorm situation that we had to shift or anything, but I can definitely echo. I joined a little bit late. I was having some internet issues, but I made it. But I can definitely echo, there's definitely a shift or a bit of time of like, how do we pivot? How do we adjust? And it was, I can't speak for where you are, but in Qatar, we got the message from our Ministry of Education on Monday afternoon that the schools were going to be closed, and then the next day we were closed. So just even, and no idea of how long that would happen. So it was definitely a what do we do? So, but just a couple of things that we reached out to, and the counselors at the college provide both academic and personal counseling to the students. So there's 5 counselors on our team and 1 student support specialist who helps run workshops, peer tutoring programs, those kinds of things, and has coordinated excellently to get all the services up, as well as peer tutoring and our help centers online as well. But we sent out an announcement to our faculty and students about our plan for continuation of services once we've developed it, and let the faculty know that they could still refer, that we were still there first. And then we, moved our continuation of one-on-one counseling services. First, we just kind of handled things by email, telephone. We were still on campus for about a week after the students were pulled, so we were able to give them some time. We've moved that. We've since kind of moved to video chat, meeting, Zoom, using the lock functions, all those things. If you want to click to the next slide, Tayseer, I can just speak to those 2 slides.
Okay.
Thanks, darling.
Is that the one you want?
Yeah, that's the slide I want. So we have a learning management system, which I'm sure almost everyone is probably using right now. It's called D2L. Blackboard would be a similar one. So we worked with our learning management people, and they gave us access to a D2L shell. So we've essentially created a resource library on our D2L shell. So that's kind of our welcome page, and in that I didn't put it all in, but we have our contact information for the students to contact us. and there's all sorts of different things. We pulled off all the resources we typically have around, like just around our offices, or we use day to day with our students. There were some of our workshops. We created some voiceover PowerPoints. We're working on doing some Arabic translation with our student support specialist. She speaks Arabic. So we're and it's a constantly evolving thing. We're putting things up as we have time to develop them. But and we did develop how to respond to COVID anxiety kind of thing right away within the first week or two. That's kind of, so we kind of shifted a little to more of a greater outreach focus. Like we still continued our one-on-one services with the students that either had already had those services or were requesting service, but we also wanted more of a outreach model, which if you can click to the next slide again, Tayseer. So this is part of a social media campaign that we've been developing on our CNAQ Life, which is our student affairs Instagram page that is just run by one of our staff members. So the image isn't there with it, but it was just like a little, it was just a couple circles with a list of things you can't control, like the spread of the virus, other people's actions, and then there was a list of things you could control, like your own behavior, your health behaviors, and just kind of getting and shifting that focus. So we're just putting out a lot of like mental health promotion, student success information through our Instagram page, trying to do a post every couple days. This week we're going to be actually launching, I'm working on it, I'm the one that's doing this piece. We're actually launching a self-care challenge. So there's a little blurb about different self-care activities, and we're going to get students to create like Instagram stories of their self-care because it's our semester break. So normally people would be traveling, they would be, you know, spending time with their friends, getting ready for Ramadan, all of those pieces. Those things may not be happening in the same kind of way. So we really wanted our students, because they were thrust into this just as like we were, and we recognize that, and we want to really give them an opportunity to take some time to center themselves in self-care. So yeah, we're just kind of trying to get out there and let them know we're still here, and there's different ways, and just more shifting to, again, like still a continuation of service, but more of a continued focus on well-being and mental health promotion and student success information as well. So that's really all I have to say. Any other?
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Nicole. Thanks a lot, Sarah. Thanks a lot, Dr. Maynaz. And we're going to keep on doing what we're doing, increasing resilience, sending positivity, and getting prepared just in case for the worst case scenario. So I got a couple of slides because of the time. Again, we're going to put the Heal the Healers context. We want to keep on monitoring signs of vicarious fatigue and burnout for us and those around us. We're going to think of clinical supervisions, webinars and free CE, focus group debrief, individual therapy for counselors. And when I say counselors, not necessarily counselors alone, therapists, student affairs professionals, whoever needs that. We need to look into establishing a crisis management mental health working group at a college level. I know that at a country level there is one, and they're doing really great. We've got the hotline. I'm not sure if everybody knows about that. There's a hotline for HMC. It's working perfectly. There's another NGO, Wayak, they have their hotline for the community. Ihsan for the elderly, they're actually also having their hotline. So there is actually something to build on and something to refer to, but at a college level, I think we need to do more in terms of preparing for the worst, just in case. We don't know the longevity of this. We don't know what's going to happen. So mental health emergency response team is well in place after the working group within campus and among colleges. Daily updates from senior management is a request, because without getting the information, we're not going to be able to help and support the students. So we need to have to be, actually from my previous work, we used to be like in that SMS meeting. So we'll get the daily update every day, what's going on, and then we'll take it from there, and accordingly we prepare the staff, we prepare the community and what they're getting and how things are going. So in case of worst case scenarios, we need to be actually in that. And then we want to think of telecounseling training. I know that there's a lot of, as Dr. Mehnaz, there's a lot of things when it comes to the ethical considerations and the licensure. But again, there's, I don't know, the British Psychological Society, the APA, the ACA, they're always updating. And every day, actually, there's different rules. And there's being, like, you know, lenient when it comes to that, actually, because we are in an emergency context whereby laws are actually challenged, and it is what it is to serve the people. It is what it is to take care of yourself. So telecounseling training and psychological first aid, we're not going to have time to go through that, but this is something that is very, very important for us to consider for everybody, for identified peers and staff to be first respondent, to support students who are exhibiting excessive worry and distress. Now, the challenges is getting trained for staff who are sick, on leave on online system, not having the right technical skills for venue social media. Like, suddenly I felt that for every counseling unit, there has to be a specialized media person, like the CAD, Sarah. Psychological and personal challenges within the SEC staff, and yet having to work. So everybody, and when I say, I'm not talking also about Qatar University alone, I'm talking about other counseling offices whereby there's a lot of challenges within, there's like lack of resources, such a couple of them. So just for the sake of time, the intervention strategies are all built on minimizing vulnerability, minimizing exposure, and strengthening our coping strategies. And that's basically the model for psychological first aid, safety, function, and action. And we're not going to go through the preparatory phase. And I think we're actually, because of the time, I would like to yeah, definitely. I'd like to end here, and I thank you so much, everybody, and I will be available and my colleagues for any questions. How many minutes do we have?
We have about 5 minutes for questions, maybe
Okay.
just a little bit less. So if people want to put questions in the chat, please feel free to do so now.
Okay, I really cannot read the chat. Can somebody help with that?
I can read the questions out as they come in.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Dad. We will have the PowerPoint for everybody, right?
Yes, and there'll be a recording of this session that will be available most likely next week on the Manassa website. There was one question, Tayseer, earlier. Someone asked if you're considering the serious security issues related to confidentiality in Zoom, as some people have stopped using it.
Absolutely, yeah. We did as well. We started with Zoom because a couple of students liked it because of the background. They don't want to show where they are, so they kind of like the waves and stuff like that. But then when the whole issue with the confidentiality, we stopped, and we're using now WebEx Meet, and I hope that it's relatively. I got really worried when I got hacked 2 days ago here, but like, yeah, you know.
And I can just add to that because I've been using Zoom for several years now in different capacities. And I know that there at first, a couple weeks back, there was some concerns, but they have added in additional security measures now. And they advise that if you provide a host ID along with the meeting ID separate, that those are ways that you can have a much more secure setting. For instance, with our sessions here, we've made the links to the sessions fairly public in the sense that anyone who registered has access to those. But with the idea of smaller meeting sessions, definitely one-on-ones, you could send a succinct link and a password or meeting, in addition to the meeting ID, to restrict access to minimize issues of Zoom bombing, especially for situations like this. We're talking about one-on-one counseling or sort of advising support. So that's something that I know they have improved a little bit in recent weeks.
I can add to that with Zoom. I use the waiting room feature, and I have to admit people to the room. So usually I can see the students waiting, and then I'll admit it. And I only log into it when I have a scheduled appointment. It's not available, and I am only sending the meeting request to individual students. So it's just another little added feature that I like. just to put that out there for everyone.
Yeah, that's a great point, Nicole. And I think they've kind of set that as the default mode now, is that the waiting room is a requirement. You used to be able to turn it on or turn it off. I'm not sure if they've any of that, but they've put it as a default feature now. So you have to screen people before they come in.
Also, there is a healthcare version of Zoom that hopefully some of us are looking into. I don't know if that seems like a good investment. We haven't really gotten it yet. We're still using regular business Zoom through university, but they are looking into it.
Okay. Thank you, Mahnaz.
And there are a number of other softwares out there along these same lines. I've used 4 or 5 different ones. Somebody mentioned WebEx earlier. There's Blue Jeans. We're using Ring Central. Ring Central is actually a product of Zoom. As you can see in the icon, it says powered by Zoom. But so there are a number of products, at least 4 or 5 out there that I've used in different ways with different security issues.
Okay.
Any other questions? There is a question about if people could get access to the slides, Tayseer.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I don't know if when they get access, they can just click in the Isaac manual, and I've just put a couple of self-care also resources. And somebody was saying, yeah, absolutely. If we're going to do this action committee, we'll let you know in private. That's it. I think I don't have much here with me in terms of the questions.
Okay, great. Well, at this point, I'd like to bring our session to a close so we can all prepare for the 10 o'clock session or the session of the next hour. I'd like to thank Tayseer, Sarah, Nicole, and Mahnaz for their insights and their participation today. Sorry, I should turn my camera on. So we appreciate all of your contributions. We thank all of you that joined the session. Please remember that there are 2 sessions coming up here at the top of the hour. I don't have those titles in front of me. Janelle, do you have those titles handy?
Hello, Tad. Yes, I do have them handy. I'll go ahead and share those with the group now. So at 10 o'clock, we have the session Pivot to Online Advising for option 1, and then option 2 session is Writing Center Practice Redefined. At 11 a.m., we have our open Manasseh area meeting and closing remarks.
Yes, and I just want to add to the 11 o'clock meeting, it is an open meeting. We really encourage as many people to join us so we can update you on what we've been doing as a Manasseh area, as a board. If you're interested in getting involved, we'll talk a little bit about some of those opportunities and ways in which you can consider that. So there's going to be a couple of important updates. Plus, we're going to be talking about how we can serve you as professionals in the area. We've done the virtual conference this year. We do some online other forums, Multakas. We have a few of those coming up. So if you can join us at 11 o'clock, it'd be really a great thing to have as many people and to get as much insight as possible. So with all of that, we will close this session. Again, my thanks to our presenters for a very informative session. And we hope to see you in one of the 10 o'clock sessions.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate it. It's 2 o'clock at your place. So thanks a lot.